All right, welcome everybody. I'm Russell Kirk, B'nai Noach from Texas. I'm here with Rabbi Alan Friedlander from Brooklyn, is it? And so before Rabbi Alan Friedlander became a rabbi, he was a Judic professor of political science at Touro College in New York. So I figured he is a good person to ask the following questions, on how to prevent further violence against Israel without requiring an all-out war to wipe the slate clean of terrorism, if such a thing is even possible. As a peaceful resolution to the Middle East conflict. So with that, greetings, Rabbi Professor Friedlander.
Thank you. Greetings to you, Russell.
Okay, so Rabbi, let's start with this question here. Is there still a peaceful path to peace in the Middle East conflict?
Yes, there is. This is something that I've been working on actually since the Bush administration. I came up with a peace plan called the Everyone Wins Peace Plan. And in Hebrew, that's the Tachnit Shalom Kulam Marvichin. And it resolved all the problems without war. And it treats two things differently than other peace plans do. Number one, it treats the prophecies of the Bible as important intel. It doesn't ignore God's word. Now, a lot of people, a majority of the world's population, believes that the Bible is significantly important. And whether or not they discuss that on television, the truth is a lot of people believe that the Bible said things that will be. So therefore, if the Bible's warning you, if you try to do a certain thing, it will never work. To do it would not make sense if you're a believer. So that the first thing I did was to look at what the Bible says and work myself backwards from there, seeing if the future is going to be like that. So what is possible from a spiritual perspective, and what is pragmatic from a political perspective.
Okay.
And then the second thing, philosophy I took on when forming the peace plan was to consider that a good Palestinian Arab is a potential asset to the state of Israel. It not someone to reject, but a potential friend and good citizen of the future. So if you put those together, you come out with you're trying to create something that's good before the laws of heaven and the laws of humans. So international law, of course, is complied with if you are concerned about people and consider them important. But we also have to consider, what do states do? If, for example, America considers Hamas a terrorist organization. So with a terrorist organization, their death is no big deal. So now, having that attitude, of course, by civilians is the exact opposite of what you want. So you have to be able to separate in your mind Hamas from the good Palestinians. And if you just lump them all together and say negotiate with both of them at the same time, you'll never be able to achieve the exact same goal, because they have two different directions with that negotiation.
Absolutely. All right. Well, then, is that a one-state solution or a two-state solution?
So this would be called a one-state solution with the IDF in control. and with good Arabs joining Israel. Now, this is the key thing about this, though. The Arabs would not have to leave their homes. They could keep their homes where they are, and I think that's a huge difference when you have, a lot of people think about Rabbi Kahani's plan if you're talking about a religious plan, but that's not the only way to do it. So, the everyone wins plan is kosher according to the Torah, but still believes that the good people should keep their homes, and it's not based on their race or their religion. It's only based on, are they a part of civilization or not? If they choose to try to destroy the world, nobody wants them as their neighbor. Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. So, can Israel survive as a democracy that resembles itself with such a influx of population with the entirely different political philosophy?
Yes. Well, there's two reasons for that. One is, of course, we don't know what percentage of people will end up naturalizing. Many people have become polarized. I warned about this over a decade ago, that the more time passes, the more people are going to become polarized against having a reasonable peace deal. But those who choose good, is assuming a peace is something we could all agree is good, they would be able to join in and become part of the Israel of tomorrow. So whether that is 50% or 90% of the Palestinian Arabic population, it's anyone's guess. But the idea is that it's set up to enable the choice of individuals to keep their friends, their homes, their societies intact, and become a part of a real democracy that has elections more often than once every 16 years. It's there's no comparison, and Arabs, more Arabs in of course, now that there's no Jews in Gaza, only Arabs are being hurt by Hamas's rule. Somebody makes a mistake in religion, they could die for it. So it's been a difficult time. So I imagine there's quite a few people who would want to become a part of Israel under such an option. And I've actually heard, of course, interviews of people, Arabs in the West Bank, and supporting this idea, and that it's just something. If you listen, you could hear it. If you're not concerned about it, or you didn't try to listen, so you may not know about it yet. But maybe now, people can look into it and find out the truth for themselves.
Well, I think so. I think I think when given the opportunity to sorry about that.
Very dynamic chime.
It's just a.
It's a nice orchestra.
It is. But like I was saying, when people have the opportunity to make those choices freely, I think they would definitely choose the freedoms that the state of Israel offers, if they could so freely choose. Now,
Yes.
how can you invite a terrorist to naturalize into your country, though?
Right. I mean, that's precisely the point, because Hamas cannot be invited, and if they're choosing terror, that means they've chosen to reject all rules of being gentle to civilians, all international law. To embrace terror is to reject civilization, and by making that choice, so they are forcing one of two things. either people put on blinders and say they've got to negotiate with them because they're the other side, and it's like in the middle of a boxing match trying to negotiate with the other boxer. It doesn't really make sense from a realistic perspective. And the other perspective is just saying they're not in the category of people that you can negotiate with. So therefore, if you cannot negotiate with them, so multilateralism is out the window. And if you're going to do unilateralism, it means the country does its own choices without negotiation. So international law requires that you do something that benefits the other country, the other population. You don't want to make things worse for the Palestinians. Now, the only people eligible to have a worse time under a plan like Everyone Wins is that people who choose to be evil, people who choose to try to destroy civilization, terrorists. Everyone else has the potential to naturalize. So there has to be a filtration of terror. Once you remove terror from the mix, then everyone could be in the same country. It's no problem.
Right. Well, both sides would be safe, basically.
Right. So then there's just two aspects of this we still have to discuss. Is that okay? Terrorists you get rid of, so to speak. Just don't include them. Say you can't come to the party, and then so then to the good people you set up for immediate naturalization process. What about the people in between? Because there's really three distinct groups. The terrorists, the non-terrorists, and the people who are voting for Hamas. Now, people voting for Hamas, it's not a simple matter. My supposition is people are just voting for the opposition to Abbas.
Are they voting for Hamas under duress?
I don't necessarily think that. I think that they are voting for Hamas because there's no alternative. I was following the news, the Palestinian news about third-way parties like Hanan Ashrawi. She used to be a guest frequently with Ted Koppel on his show. Nightline, on ABC. So she formed a political party, and she was not able to get a significant percentage of the vote. She couldn't break 5%. There is a system: you vote for Fatah or you vote for Hamas. They were a part of Arafat's army, so those are the two choices. That's it. So if Fatah is corrupt for 16 years, what the person to do? Even a person who doesn't want terror may say, I'm rejecting criminality. And so I think some people feel that they have no choice. Maybe they wouldn't even want to risk Israel by empowering Hamas. But they have to reject what Fatah is doing. Otherwise, Fatah is emboldened to hurt them even more. The Palestinians are suffering from Arabs, from their Arab leadership. And this was essentially the Labor Party of the 1990s were giving machine guns to terrorists and hoping that they would change the leopards would change their spots in time. And it didn't work.
Yeah. Well, what do they say? The definition of insanity is to do the same thing and expect a different result.
Yeah, which is why I'm trying to offer an alternative to Western civilization, where to try to save good people on both sides. You don't start out on a path to war, and you recognize a terrorist is outside of what the rest of us are trying to do. The rest of us are trying to build civilization, and the terrorist is trying to destroy it, anarchist. And a anarchy discussion is okay for a political science class in college. It is not okay as a leader of the free world. And it's essentially trying to create a terrorist state. And who could bear such a thing? So in other words, the only way to guarantee there's no peace is to have a two-state solution under the current circumstance, where everyone's expecting Israel to negotiate with a terror organization.
Okay, well then, how can you determine the actual loyalty of someone from a society so committed to terror? Even among those that don't have blood on their hands, they keep trying to elect the terrorist organization, Hamas, to be their new government.
Yeah, that's a problem. Even though it's my supposition that the Palestinians, Arabs, are trying to just have a protest vote against Abbas, and it's also possible that they're supporting terror. We don't know. So there is a potential significant element of the population that may not agree to peace, in which case they would never agree to peace. So then it leaves us with two choices: to let the Palestinians collectively be run by the violent half of their country, or to let the non-violent half of the Palestinian Arabs and all of Israel unite to make a greater democracy of the future. That makes more sense. Palestine has never been an Arab country, ever. Even today, both the West Bank, quote unquote, Judea and Samaria, and Gaza are not countries, except they are considered territories under the governorship responsibility of Israel. The reason why the United Nations is on Israel's back is because Israel has the responsibility to keep peace in those territories. So the current regimes there are really governors working for Israel.
Is that why they reject the ideal of statehood in Gaza, and that then they would become a separate entity where Israel wouldn't have that responsibility?
If Israel did not have the responsibility, so then Israel would no longer be able to blockade Iran from sending weapons. If Israel has the responsibility, but also authority to blockade, so it's not an international crime for them to protect themselves. So because Hamas has dedicated himself to terror, there's no way forward with Hamas in leadership. And because from the outside, it looks like, even though I don't believe that, it looks like the Palestinians have given up on Fatah, and they're willing to side with Hamas. I personally have more faith in the Palestinian people that they will reject the way of Hamas if they were given a choice by Israel.
So are you not proposing amnesty for all Palestinian Arabs in the Palestinian Authority?
No. To be a Palestinian Arab, you have to be a member of civilization. And to be someone who's trying to destroy civilization is, there's other methods to treat a insane person besides killing them. But you don't empower them and give them the legitimacy to receive weapons from state sponsors of terror. So the only way it could work is if there's a united state of Israel that does not include Hamas.
Do you think that it's upon the Palestinian people to outlaw terrorism themselves and to just within themselves, govern themselves in a way that they could have authority over their lives and what happens as far as allowing terrorism to operate among them?
Perhaps at a communal level. Each little township can have town meetings and say, we have to reject this when we're given a chance to naturalize with Israel. But at a statewide level, there's nothing you could do at this point. For election after election, they have been voting for Hamas. So it's and you cannot have peace with Hamas. So you can no longer trust the previous voting of the Palestinian people. You have to have faith in them as good people, potentially. And on that, on the good person in everyone, the image of God that we are created in, they'll make the right choice when the opportunity comes along to make things better for their family, friends, and societies. Again, in my plan, they don't have to leave their homes. So they still have their same friends, their same potential, if they already have a job, the same societies. Only now they can legally work in Israel and receive benefits and protection from Israel and freedom of religion from Israel.
Well, the human default is good. And so if it's given the opportunity, and I think the Palestinian people need an opportunity to decide they're good. And I think if that was given to them, then I think the natural outcome of that would be peace.
I agree. And you see, that's the key. The status quo is compelling them, in my opinion, to choose Hamas. And step forward, that's the natural consequence of negotiating with Hamas would entail is destruction for Israel. So the only way is to find a way you could bring the good Palestinians with you to the Israel of tomorrow.
Do you think that, I think, personally, I think, and I ask you this question, is that do you think the outside or the Arab outside influences are so powerful that, the will of the Palestinian people to choose is not there because of the outside forces?
Well, I think that it's not outside forces that Arafat has created a regime that lasted beyond his years, that is continuing to oppress people. In no democratic run election would you have a third way party such as an international media quote unquote star like Hanan Ashrawi would be unable to get the 5% of the vote. It doesn't make sense. You would want someone who's good with the Americans, hoping you get a liberal enough American president that she could convince him to give more to the Palestinians than before. From a perspective of let me vote what's good for the Palestinians, they've been going in the opposite direction. Only choosing the two gangs of Arafats is, it doesn't look like democracy to me. It looks like something else.
Is America part of the problem or part of the solution in the future?
America is powering whatever path that everyone is agreeing to among the three parties, among Israel, the Palestinians, and America. So but America primarily goes with what's the best between those two parties. So Israel has to make the decision to pursue a one state solution that does not kick everyone from their homes, because you cannot ethnically cleanse. That was the failure in the Kahani plan was that it easily violates international law unless you have very special workarounds. Now, even Rabbi Kahani himself, he wanted to reimburse Arabs who left, but the cat was out of the bag. It was declared a ethnic cleansing kind of land. So it's not necessarily true from a technical aspect of it, but there's no way to work around it. The closest thing to a workable Canaan type solution would be Rabbi Benny Alon's Israel initiative, where Jordan is Palestine, that kind of thing. But then you're forcing another country to take on more Palestinians that it's already overburdened with, from their own perspective, and otherwise it would, if you would want to force that unilaterally, God forbid, that could be a war. So wars are not a free choice, and like this. So biblically speaking, wars were only to fight against like human sacrifice kind of cannibal societies, not a regular kind of situation. So you can't just go around attacking people. Therefore, you have to assume that okay, let's say all of the Arab League, all of Europe, and America all put together a gigantic bribe to Jordan to be overtaxed with more people that it feels a minority from already, and I don't think Jordan would take that money. So therefore, it's no longer viable. So then, looking at all the other peace plans that have been suggested, the one that comes closest to viability would be Carolyn Glick, formerly, the Jerusalem Post editor. So she, her plan is very good from the perspective of taking all the lands required according to biblical prophecy at a minimum. You need those lands for, it's just a matter of the future will have that. The Judea and Samaria will be a part of Israel. It's a fait accompli as far as the prophets go. So therefore, it fits that. However, it doesn't filter terror. And it leaves Hamas in charge of Gaza. So, and that's more terrifying than anything else we discussed tonight. So yeah, if it was any peace plan besides mine, then Jordan as Palestine would be the one to go with, if somehow some miracle Jordan agreed to it, which I can't imagine happening. Therefore, I tried to set my mind to this to try to find an alternative that fits the Torah and fits international law and is good to people and values people and makes Israel secure forever.
Well, from your mouth to God's ears, so we speak, we say. And
if there's no constant conflict in the Middle East, then people will know that someone who bothers a Jew on the streets, they're just bothering a Jew on the street. We know it's bias. It's anti-Semitism. It's wrong. As long as there's conflict in the Middle East, so then some people who don't know what's going on in the world could be confused. It's easier to recruit people to be susceptible to assume that Israel's being too tough with Palestinians. We've seen the phenomena, even though I don't fully understand it. But it's been going on. So that Haspara nightmare, that PR nightmare would go away the moment there is a path to peace.
So talking about the violence that we're seeing even here in America, the anti-Semitism and stuff like that, how much can be attributed to that by the political winds that blow and change throughout our country?
Oh, well, anti-Semitism is usually, traditionally in history, according to the country that the Jews are in. In this particular case, it's a spillover from what's happening in Israel. By choice, Hamas actually announced that they have 7 million sleepers in America, it's time for them to wake up. Hamas actually made that the hopeful peace partner, Hamas, God forbid, So they asked that innocent Americans become cruel people and attack Jews, just to be a pseudo sleeper of the Hamas terror cells.
That's true. Well, but that the life obviously here in America is much different than it is in the Middle East, and I'm sure that that they have a more difficulty influencing these people to take these extreme measures over here than they would over there. It would seem to me. I don't know if that's an accurate depiction of the level of their commitment to their cause, but I think that when you have people in desperate situations, they're more inclined to do desperate things.
Right. Now again, this peace plan calls for unilateral choice by Israel. And again, from international law perspective, legal perspective, Israel is the only recognized member of the United Nations west of the River Jordan. So that is in and of itself is not technically wrong. Customarily, the countries like that you always do things multilateral, but that's just not going to fix it. It's going to guarantee this is not fixed forever. God forbid. So another aspect that I didn't mention before, besides the fact that some Palestinians would choose Hamas over freedom for themselves and their children. Also, there's going to be a filter among the filtration process. Those who are not clearly on the side of civilization will have to be in a queue until they prove themselves worthy. We're able to, credit card companies are able to determine what's a good credit risk. So once people are open to this idea of letting Israel in to evaluate them and try to give them a chance to naturalize. So that will also enable that to work. So that removes danger from Israel. In addition, this process could take years. So that allows more aliyah from the world, more immigration of Jews from throughout the world to Israel. I've heard so many Jews say that the danger in Israel is so much part of the reason why they're not in Israel. So if aliyah jumped incredibly, and by the time the Arabs went through their filtration process to become naturalized into Israel, there was already a matching population that immigrated. So then the whole worry about demographics and the elections being tainted this way or that is a non-starter. It's not talking about a gradual immigration and naturalization plan. Now, if this requires everyone to get off the fence, Israel especially, it has to decide to choose a healthy course for it and all the people who want civilization in its borders. And if Israel does that, then it will be healthier for that. It will be better for that, and the Israel of tomorrow will be even greater than the Israel of today.
Well, Rabbi, those are some really great perspectives that I think so many people really don't have a full grasp of, and getting the opportunity to listen to someone from your position with your perspectives and things like that can really open up the minds of a lot of people. And we hope, that happens for the sake of Hashem and for the sake of Israel. So I appreciate your time. I appreciate you visiting with us and sharing with us, and hopefully we'll get an opportunity to do this again soon.
It'll be nice. Also, I want to mention a lot of my essays on this topic are included on my blog, Jerusalem Defender blog. That's JerusalemDefender.blogspot.com. And I've been writing about it since the Bush administration. So there's lots of stuff to cover, but don't worry, there's a search option. Yeah. And yeah. Just think about it. If I also have a Middle East comparison chart. If you look at all the other peace plans, no other peace plan has a chance of 100% success, according to improved intersocietal, enjoyments and biblical prophecy. There's no other plan that does that. Like a Jordanist Palestine plan that would relocate everyone, which, unless done with their will, is ethnic cleansing. So this is more ideal, in a sense, from current international legal perspective, than even Jordanist Palestine. So that's a very interesting thing, that it's not just according to the will of God. It's also according to the some of the ideals of current nations as well.
Well, that perspective alone, that the biblical prophecy and the humanity and all of those dynamics coming together, it does sound like a successful plan that we should all be working towards.
Well, whatever God's will is. I'm just saying that from my studies, that I found it fits according to biblical prophecy, and it's good to everyone except for terrorists. No offense. Just stop being a terrorist. I could be nice to you too. What do you want?
Yeah. All right. Well, Rabbi Alan Friedlander, thank you so much for being with us and sharing your perspectives and your peace plan. May it be the will of Hashem.
Amen.
Thank you. Bye.